Hello, this is Priscilla Rice, and I'm coming to you from Live Oak Recording Studio. This week, we're going to have a rebroadcast of one of our earlier classic podcasts. We hope you enjoy it, and thanks so much for listening. Episode number 480. Is your chapter on fire, on hold, or in a hole?
You're listening to the official BNI podcast with BNI founder and Chief Visionary Officer, Dr. Ivan Misner. Stay tuned for networking and referral marketing tips from the man who's been called the father of modern networking, along with suggestions and insights into getting the most from your membership in the world's largest networking organization, BNI.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the official BNI podcast, brought to you by networkingnow.com, which is a leading site on the net for networking downloadables. I'm Priscilla Rice, and I'm coming to you from Live Oak Recording Studio in Berkeley, California, and I'm joined on the phone today by the founder and the Chief Visionary Officer of BNI, Dr. Ivan Misner. Hello, Ivan. How are you, and where are you?
This week, I am in Houston and in Boston. You didn't know they were real close to each other, did you?
No, I did not know that.
No, I'm doing some BNI things for both Houston and Boston. So traveling about it again a little bit. Love the topic today.
Okay, help us with this one.
Well, so if your chapter has ever gone through a cycle, and if your chapter has been around for a couple of years, I'm telling you, you've probably gone through cycles.
Right.
That's what this is all about. It's about chapter cycles. And so I would recommend that you go to the BNI podcast and do a search on chapter cycles. And you'll find some additional information on chapter cycles here. But I just came up with these three phrases recently, and I think they perfectly identify where chapters are within a cycle process. And it's so easy to remember and so easy to understand. You walk into some chapters, and they are on fire. They're energized, goal-oriented. They're thriving, and most importantly, they're reporting high dollar value or high revenue values. Thank you for closed business values. While others are basically on hold. They're just kind of going through the motions, doing the minimum, getting average results. Then there are those others. They're in a hole. They're struggling with attendance. They're not holding members accountable. They're not excited. And they're having difficulty maintaining a strong membership. So if you're listening to this, what I'd like for you to do is to stop for a moment and think for yourself. Where is your group right now relating to these three phases? Be honest. Where do you think your group stands? If you think your group is on fire, then let me congratulate you. Because that was my vision for what a great BNI experience should be about. If your group is on hold, trust me when I say that it doesn't take a lot to move from this phase to on fire. I've seen many groups do that in a short period of time. And if your group is in a hole, don't despair. You can be an incredible group. Believe me, I've seen it. The exciting thing is it is actually possible to leapfrog over the middle. From being in a hole, you can leapfrog to being on fire fairly quickly with the right leadership team and full commitment from your members. Just know that all groups go through these cycles. It happens. It's okay. The key is to recognize the cycles and know when it's time for you to move out of one cycle and go into the other. Why accept mediocrity when excellence is an option? Excellence is an option, and I see it every day in BNI chapters all around the world. So let's look at the three kinds of groups real quickly here. On fire groups, these are chapters that are not willing to settle for mediocrity. They're the biggest, they're the best, they're the most productive. Or if they're not the biggest and the best, they're working towards, they're striving to be the biggest and the best, the most productive chapters for members to be in. Their leadership teams are committed to the BNI policies, the guidelines, the system. Their members attend virtually all the trainings offered by the local region. Often several times they'll attend. You'll find many members with several ribbons attached to their badges denoting all the different roles they've played in the chapter. Visitor host, education coordinator, leadership team, etc. Most of the members in these groups have fully completed their BNI Connect profiles on BNI Connect, including member testimonials, badges, CEUs. And they're actively passing referrals online and reporting them to their chapter each week. The excitement level at chapters like this are electric. Chapters in this phase just exude energy and positive attitude. They're likely to try most of the ideas that the directors give. They effectively do one-to-ones. That's an important one. And they tend to operate in a really friendly environment. They have a great culture of support and positivity. And they don't let either business or structure get in the way of having fun and developing close relationships. They're really good at it. So I love on-fire groups. On-fire groups are what I meant to create when I started BNI. On hold. On hold groups. In this phase, chapters have become somewhat complacent. They've oftentimes been on fire, and they've lost some of the spark that made them successful. Or maybe they may be a smaller chapter that's begun to give up on growth and has accepted the status quo. The chapter that's going through this phase tends to believe that things are okay. They're okay. They're good. It's not bad. We don't have any pressing problems. There's not much that we need to do. They may feel like the amount of business they're getting and doing is okay. It may not be great, but it's all right. They may take some suggestions offered by the director, but they usually dismiss a number of suggestions because they don't think it applies to them. Whether they know better, they tend to follow many, but not all, of the policies and the basic structure of the meetings, but they've lost or are losing their enthusiasm and spirit. I think it was Jim Collins in Good to Great that says, what is the enemy of good? And people say, well, bad. And that's actually not the answer.
Uh-huh.
The enemy of great, actually this question, what is the enemy of great? And most people answer bad. The answer to what's the enemy of great is good, not bad.
Uh-huh.
Good is the enemy of great. And we've heard people say it, oh, it's good enough.
Mm-hmm.
That'll work. And so oftentimes, and certainly in BNI, good is the enemy of great. On hold is often good, but on fire is great. And of course, I think you know where we're going with in a hole.
Yeah.
Chapters in this phase tend to have numerous problems. And it could be any one of these or all of them. It could be attitudes, referrals, attendance. Almost always attendance is lower than other groups in the other phases that I've discussed. Unfortunately, most of the membership is focused on the problems and not on the solutions. We recently talked about an engine and, people surrounding yourself with people who are engines or anchors, and the anchors tend to focus on solutions. I found that chapters that focus on problems and not the solutions become the expert on problems, and that's where they live as a group and not live as in the how do we get to the solution. They tend not to follow the agenda, the structure of the policies very well. They tend to view their local director as an outsider rather than a resource or a coach to support them and make the process work. Almost all chapters, and by the way, the process begins in recognizing the phase that you're in and then contacting your director for getting help to stay in the on fire phase or help to move out of on hold or out of in a hole. And all chapters go through these phases. Priscilla, I know your chapter has. I've managed many chapters who have. However, the really successful chapters tend to spend more time in the on-fire phase than the other two phases. And I'm going to include in this podcast a PDF. It's called Rate Your Chapter. So Rate Your Chapter Worksheet. If you're listening to this and you determine that you're on hold or in a hole, I want you to contact your director to get some suggestions on how you can help the group achieve excellence. And one way to kind of determine where you're at is to have all your members complete this Rate Your Chapter Worksheet that I'm going to include with this podcast. We're in thousands. We have thousands of groups now in dozens of countries. With that many groups, we have landed on the right combination of passion, structure, accountability, and culture to make the groups work. Don't reinvent the wheel, everyone. The process works really well for chapters that effectively use the tools and the assistance that we provide. And so do a little assessment of your group, maybe complete this form that I'm going to include here. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, and then I want to have a closing comment that I'd like to give Priscilla.
Well, do you think that using that form is appropriate for an educational moment?
Absolutely. And it's a great assessment. It's a self-assessment tool. And all of the members of the chapter just fill it out. But, you'll need to, what I would do is I would prep everyone and tell them next week, I'm going to do this Rate Your Chapter, and I'm going to hand it out. And we're going to take 3 to 5 minutes during the meeting to have everyone complete that, if you would, please. And I'm going to collect them in, and I'm going to calculate the results. And I think, but it takes a little bit of work for the education coordinator to do. But it's really, really valuable. And so, yes, but I'd prep them. I wouldn't just throw it on them.
Okay. All right.
So we're probably out of time. Let me leave you with one last thought. For 2 things, actually. Love to hear your thoughts about chapter cycles. Have you experienced them? And for those of you who were in a hole or on hold and are now on fire, people need to hear from you. They really need to hear from you. So if you've been in a group that's on hold or in a hole, talk about what your group did to get on fire. I think that will probably be as valuable or more valuable than my podcast, hearing it from members. So as important, I think passion is really important to success. But as important as passion is to success, I really believe that passion alone does not produce results. Passion and commitment produce results. And so take the passion that you have for BNI, attach some commitment to it, and your chapter will go from on hold or in a hole to on fire faster than you thought possible. And that's the kind of organization that I was trying to start over 30 years ago when I started BNI. Thanks, Priscilla.
Thank you so much, Dr. Meisner. Okay, well, I'd just like to remind the listeners that this podcast has been brought to you by networkingnow.com, the leading site on the net for networking downloadables. Thank you so much for listening. This is Priscilla Rice, and we hope you'll join us next week for another exciting episode of the official BNI podcast.